welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 247 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 21 of A Feast for Crows, that is, The Queenmaker.
Ooh. Well, as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. Unless, of course, you have a sustainer tier that includes spoilers, then we will spoil things for you. Regardless, hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. Honestly, I'm a bit worn out, but I'm generally
Why are you worn
doing
out?
all right.
Do tell.
Well, yesterday and today was Molly's college orientation, and started at 8 a.m. We left the house yesterday morning at 6 a.m., so we were up before 5 a.m., went until like 9 or so at night.
Wow.
Stayed at a hotel last night, and then had to get back up and be there for 8 this morning, and then finish the day, drive back, try and cram for this episode.
And
then
I forced you to do it early just after all that. Well, sorry about that. But so wait, so you were there for 2 days. My parents dropped me off and left with a screech of tires.
I know, right? I don't even think my parents... Well, to be fair, I did attend the college that my dad was a professor at, so there wasn't a need for them to come to orientation. Yeah. But I don't think they ever even saw the place I was living in until at least a month or so after I was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they helped me carrying my bags inside, so they saw where I was staying, but that was it. You know, then right. They were gone, and I saw them at Christmas.
Yeah, it was a little bit absurd at times. What I expected, and this is kind of the way it was when Ethan, when we went to his college orientation 6 or so years ago. The kids had their own tracks that, session after session that was pertinent to them. The parents had some things sprinkled in, like, here's how you pay for the tuition, and here's how you pay for parking, and, things like that. But
there's a common theme there, I noticed.
Yeah, I know, right? Pay. The word is pay. But there was so much, like, we were sitting in sessions that I was like, why am I in this? I don't need to know. I don't need to know how to have a successful freshman year. I did that more than 2 decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a bit over the top, a bit ridiculous, quite honestly. I should not have been nearly as exhausted as I am.
You're right.
How are you doing, though?
I'm doing well. I mean, I haven't had to say goodbye to my charming daughter, so, I'm not as bereft as you are. But I have a slightly funny story for you.
Oh, good.
She's coming back, right? Or she's already come back.
She's already home with us. Yeah, she came back with us. Yeah, it's not for another
exactly.
month.
I mean, yeah, this whole thing is just so weird to me. Yeah. So my funny story. So I've been watching a TV show on Amazon called The Outlaws.
Oh, okay.
I might have mentioned it to you. Quite entertaining. It's created by and stars Stephen Merchant, who you probably don't recognize the name, but he was the co-creator of The British Office.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Very tall fella.
Yes, that guy. Okay, yes. I got him. Yeah.
And he's very funny in this show. And basically the basic premise of this show is it's a group of British people who committed minor crimes and they're all doing community service together. And as part of their community service, they perform much larger crimes, but not really because they're rotten, just because things happen to them. But anyway, so this is a minor spoiler, but at one point, 3 of the characters are trying to dispose of a human corpse.
Okay. Okay.
And
it's kind of a major crime, yes.
Right. Well, I'm not telling you how they came upon this body, but they're in the woods and they're trying to dig and they just keep hitting sort of bedrock and they just can't find a way to get rid of this body.
Roots and rocks.
And eventually the Stephen Merchant character gets his phone out and he asks his phone, how do you get rid of it? the other two are like, don't do that. Oh my God. Yeah. But he did it by saying, hey, Google.
Right.
And so while we're laughing at the joke, from our kitchen, a voice goes, you could try incinerating it. Or...
Oh, no. We're laughing about this now. It might be not funny when there's a knock at your door.
So I'm on a list somewhere. I know that for sure. But I have two corollaries to this story. So I told it on the family call, and my sister Sarah and her husband Mark, they said, when we watched that, the same thing happened to us.
Oh, we have a Google thing. If I watch that show, I better unplug it.
You're definitely going to be on the list with all of us, yeah. But so we laughed about that it happened to them, it happened to us, so. But about 15 minutes later on the family call, I was like, wait a minute. That happened since we've been having this family call. And you never thought to mention it. But the colour of your new washing up bowl has come up on multiple occasions. Right. Like, you people are just not giving us what we need on this call. You've got amusing stories. Yeah. Share that with us.
Your family is known for bearing the lead when it comes to humorous
or
interesting
They're the worst.
tales.
They're the worst. Yeah. But just one last dry run of telling this story. I told it to my friends Natalie and Alex earlier. And Natalie sort of like guessed where he was going when he picked up his phone. And she said, hey, Siri, how do you dispose of a human body? And her phone said, well, you could bury it. So it happened to her, preempting my joke. I said, well, this story's going to fall a bit flat now, but what happened to me was...
I really wish you hadn't mentioned that because I'm about to have the same punchline to this story. The good news
for me is the list has gotten so long that I'll probably get lost on it somewhere.
Yes. It seems like this might be if the FBI is searching for people who have buried bodies, they're going to have to sift through a lot of false positives.
Given that it happened directly to me and my sister, I wonder if they knew it was going to happen. I wonder if when they recorded it, they were like, this will be funny.
Yes.
This is an extra layer of humor on this joke for everyone.
Yes, I could see that.
All right, well, let's get down to business. How do we leave the Queenmaker? Well, who is the Queenmaker? It is Princess Arianne Martell. Last we saw of her, she was seducing Sir Arys Oakheart, who... if he was resisting that seduction, I'd say his oaken heart was not in it.
Was not.
At least not in the resistance of it, anyway. And manipulating him to her cause. Her cause, you ask? Well, her cause is to crown Myrcella as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, as she feels that this would trigger the war she wants to avenge her uncle Oberyn and her aunt Elia's murders. And secondarily, to reinforce the Dornish custom of primogeniture, which ought to guarantee that she, Arianne, inherits from her father, Prince Dorne, rather than her grasping younger brother, Quentyn.
Aha.
So, Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. And as part of my cramming duties, it was reading this about 5 minutes before we started recording. So I'm sure this will go swimmingly.
Should be fresh.
Yes. So Arianne Martell and her companions, Garin, Dray, Silva, and Gerald Dane, a.k.a. Darkstar, wait in an abandoned well for the arrival of Myrcella and Sir Arys Oakheart. The rendezvous point was chosen because Oberyn used to bring young Arianne there as a child, along with Tyene and Sorella. He taught Tyene to extract poison from vipers here. Her beloved uncle would also tell her stories as the sun set. Garin recalls the stories, including Garin the Great, for whom he is named. Darkstar doesn't think leading 250,000 people into their deaths qualifies as all that great.
Well, true. Good point.
He's got a point.
Yeah. Arianne watches the knight hone his blade. He's good looking, as would be their children, but he has a cruel look to him. She flushes when he catches her spying him. She wonders if he could defeat Sir Arys. She suspects that he might. They light a fire against the cold night. Garin provides the latest gossip from Planky Town, including word of the Golden Company. Arianne believes that her brother Quentyn rides with them. As Sir Gerald relieves himself, the others complain about him to Arianne, but she believes that they'll need his sword and his castle, High Hermitage.
Arianne thinks of Quentyn. He was young when he was sent to Ironwood. Prince Dorne still believes Quentyn there, but he and Cletus Ironwood were seen posing as merchants in Planky Town with scrolls sealed with the son and spear of Dorne. Darkstar returns. He's skeptical of the plan. But if they just kill Myrcella, she tells him no, as Myrcella and Arys arrive. They treat Myrcella like a queen, which confuses Myrcella. Has something happened to Tommen? No, but the throne is rightly yours. Introductions are then made.
Myrcella has heard of Arthur Dayne, but this is just antagonising Gerald, who doesn't think so highly of his late cousin. Arys pulls Arianne aside. He's learned that Tywin Lannister is dead, and Tyrion fled. Cersei rules as Tommen's regent. They have left Myrcella's handmaid posing as her with a disease that will keep people away. They ride in the night to save the horses from the heat of the day. Arianne finds their 7 head count auspicious. She envisions retiring her father to his water gardens where he could live out his days. The origin of the orphans of the green blood is explained to Myrcella.
The night slips by, and they haven't made it to the river by dawn. But they push on, risking the horses. They're not prepared for a day in the desert. The young dragon wrote that sun and spear were Dorne's favorite weapons, and the sun was the most dangerous of the two. Signs of life, a hawk and a tree, show that they're nearing the river. It's not a great river by Westerosi standards, but it's still the life of Dorne. They're making for Lord Uller's seat at Hellholt. He's the grandfather of 4 of the Sand Snakes, and will help crown Myrcella and raise Arianne's banners.
They find the boat to take them upstream. Garin yells for the crew, but Areo Hotah, captain of the guard for Prince Doran, emerges. The plan... Yes, it was a good gasp moment. Yes. The plan dies here. But
just
Oakheart...
the plan?
Yeah, well, Oakheart won't go down without a fight. He charges at the boat and the crossbow bolts of a dozen soldiers. His valor is considerable, but wounded before he even arrives, Hotah beheads him. Arianne collapses. Hotah yells for pursuit. Myrcella is crying with blood over her face and hands. It wasn't supposed to end this way. Hotah explains to Arianne that someone always tells.
Oh boy.
So, by the way, I thought this was just a great chapter. For me, it's kind of funny how Dorne barely existed in the first 3 books, and now it feels like the most exciting stuff is going on in Dorne, and it all sort of circles around Myrcella.
Yeah, it's a interesting comparison between last chapter and this chapter. Both chapters, they were on a sort of journey with companions, but last chapter, not much really happened. This chapter, all kinds of things happened.
Yeah. It just reminded me it was kind of like a novella of sort of like fantasy books, because it was like a quixotic quest through harsh conditions, a cast of bit part characters who definitely add some color and flavor to things, various characters having differing and conflicting motivations for what they're doing, then a sudden battle, and then some pointless heroism, and then take a deep breath. It's behind you.
Except for poor Sir Arys.
Well, everything's behind him now.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. It does, in its own right, would make it a nice little novella. Yeah.
So let's talk through who these companions are. So Dre is Andre Dalt. The family seat is Lemonwood. He's something of a bon vivant, not terribly interested in the bravery aspects of his knighthood. And like most of the men of Dorne, it seems he's a little bit in love with Arianne.
I had to look up what bon vivant meant.
Do you like it, though?
I do. I like it. I liked it before I knew what it meant. I was like, that's a neat-looking word. What does that mean? We also have Silva, or Spotted Silva, as they call her. Silva Santagar, that is. They call her Spotted Silva because, 1, she has freckles.
Right.
But as she is a Santagar, she is heir to Spotswood, which is the other reason that they call her Spotted Silva. That's the reason that they claim to call her Spotted for, but she knows it's also because of her freckles. Well, anyway, Santagar, we've met a Santagar. Aaron Santagar was the Master at Arms at the Red Keep when Cat went to go there to show him the Valyrian steel dagger.
Oh, yeah.
He died in the riots, I believe.
Right.
After Myrcella left. Oh my gosh, we've come full circle.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Santagar is a major house of Dorne, and Silva is another childhood friend of Arianne. We'll discover that most of these folks are.
Yeah. Yeah, because Garin is an even older friend. He was
Right.
milk brother to Arianne. Garin's mother was Arianne's wet nurse. He calls himself an orphan of the green blood, which we alluded to in the summary. It confuses Myrcella because he mentions his mother as still being alive,
And his father.
and his father
his,
too.
his father cures warts, I
Right.
believe.
He seems easygoing and pleasant, but he does not trust Darkstar.
No, he doesn't. He's the one that vocalizes it. I think the rest are feeling the same way about
Yes.
him.
But
So
honestly, though,
Darkstar.
honestly, I will say this whole setup is like a conniving princess and her three chums who've got no prowess or tactical nous, and
Right.
one knight who knows what he's doing. Yeah, they're not going to like him. They're not going to
Right.
find him
Well,
agreeable company. But my God, he's necessary.
yes, right. And she says, I need his sword and I need his castle. His sword is
Exactly.
every bit as much as the castle.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Darkstar. He's actually Sir Gerald Dane. He goes by Darkstar. He is a Dane, as you mentioned in the summary, just like Sir Arthur Dane, but he is of a lesser branch of House Dane from High Hermitage, not Starfall, where Arthur Dane was from. Darkstar is in his late 20s, and as you mentioned in the summary, he's good looking. He's got the Valerian like hair, the blonde hair and eyes. He's got the violet eyes, but there's a hardness around those eyes, and he doesn't seem to care for the reputation that his cousin Arthur has gained.
Definitely a bit of jealousy about it, that's for sure.
He says, the house is 10,000 years old, and all that anybody remembers about House Dane is Arthur.
Well, once it comes out that Arthur's sister was Jon Snow's mother, I think people will remember her as well.
Right. Yes, that's right. Yeah, and speaking of that, so Darkstar has the purple eyes and the, I guess gold is what you'd call it, hair, just like the Targaryens do, just like the Valerian look.
Yep.
He's the second Dane to be described as having purple eyes. Ashara was also described as having purple eyes. And apparently someone must have asked George Martin, does that mean that they are of Valerian descent? And he said, it does not necessarily indicate Valerian descent.
Oh.
So,
Well, I added the word Valyrian in there, assuming that that's what it meant, but
yeah,
apparently I'm wrong.
You're right. It is the physical attributes of,
Yeah.
of the Valerian look.
Hmm.
Now he gives Arianne a look, and she fears that if he were to give her that same look around Sir Arys, that there would be blood on the sand. And according to A World of Ice and Fire, the pair were once lovers, so maybe that's why he is giving her this look, possibly.
Yeah. We won't ever find out about that, about whether Arys's blood will be spilled, because Arys's blood has already been spilled, and so
Yes,
he,
yes, it has.
Sir Gerald is free to give that look all he wants now. Although I do suspect that both Dre and Garin will be ready to kill Sir Gerald for that look as well.
Yes, although I don't know that they have the skill. Even though Dre is a knight, he says,
yes.
My valor is second to, well, several. But the Danes and the Oakharts, we just learned this the previous chapter that was Sir Arys' point of view. They've been killing each other for ages. The Oakharts and the Dornish. There's those tapestries at Old Oak, which is the seat of House Oakheart, showing Oakharts killing the Dornish, and High Hermitage is very near the border between the Reach and Dorne, so you could certainly imagine there's been a lot of bad blood.
Yeah, it's funny actually that when I was reading this chapter, it dawned on me that I was misremembering the fact that that Sir Gerald was from Dorne. Because of his look, I had him in my mind that he was from the Reach.
Oh, yes.
And, I just, in my mind, I have a vision of what the Dornish people look like, and he is exactly the opposite of that. And so I was like, oh, that's right. The Danes are from the Reach. They're not from Dorne. But in actual fact, he is this side of the border.
Yes. And the fact that it dawned on you is quite the metaphor, as that's the name of the Valyrian steel sword of the house.
Indeed.
So Arianne, she's been here before. To this, it's kind of a bit of a ruinous castle. It's called Shandystone, and she tells them, they why are we here? Is one of them asks, and it's because she had come here before with Sorella, Tyene, Garin, and Oberyn. Now, Sorella and Tyene are Oberyn's children, and as you mentioned, Garin is Arianne's
milk brother.
Milk brother, yes, Arianne's milk brother. So it's kind of a little bit of a family outing, I guess, if you will.
Yes.
And Tyene and Sorella in this story behave in the expected manner that you would imagine for those two. And
help me out,
Arianne.
Help me out, because Tyene milks vipers for their venom.
Well, Tyene, we learned in the chapter with Areo Hotah's POV that Tyene's specialty is poison. Do you remember she asked for a blessing from Prince Doran, and he touched her head.
The whole place was like, oh, don't touch her. Yeah.
The maester came over and had to check his hand to make sure there was nothing wrong. So clearly she's been studying poisons for a long time, much like her father was kind of an expert in the art of poisoning. Now, Sorella, she seemed to be fascinated by the history of the place. She wanted to know everything about its people. Now, we don't know about her, but it appears she loves learning. What we do know is that she's the lone sand snake not imprisoned in Sunspear, and that she's out of Dorne, which makes her out of Dorne Martell's reach, playing her game, as Dorne put it.
And I know it's a spoiler, but I do know where she is.
That's right.
But I know where she is, and I know that she's pretending to be a guy.
Oh, yes.
See, I do pay attention.
So Arianne in the story, one of her friends asks, so what were you doing while you were all here? And she was pretending that a robber knight brought her to the ruins to have his way with her. And she describes the robber knight as tall, dark, with black eyes and a widow's peak. And that very accurately describes her uncle Oberyn. Now, it probably also describes a good percentage of the men in Dorne. But it was until the thought made her feel uneasy and she didn't speak it out loud, I just figured it was just a no face Dornishman, just a fantasy guy. But then when she said it made her feel uneasy and she didn't bring up, what she was doing, I started thinking, was she fantasizing about her uncle having his way with her? Because that would definitely make you feel uneasy.
Yes, it would. He was good looking, and he was a noted Lothario. How old was she? She would have been very young, right? He wouldn't have actually done it.
No. I don't think. I don't think her uncle had any feelings the other way.
Right. I think she clearly was. But
right.
But I do wonder if he has this effect on people, though. If this sort of like ongoing affection for him, even after his death, is partly because people sort of fell in love with him and fantasized about him and sort of like projected onto him things that weren't necessarily true of him.
That could be.
And that's why he's still such a touchstone in Dorne.
Yeah, he has a larger than life personality, and now he'll be forever a legend.
Yeah. We skipped over some of the rumors that Garin had from Planky Town, but some of them were little keys to the story that's going on, sort of the larger story. He knew about the slave revolt in Astapor. So Planky Town is a port city in Dorne, and so they have sailors coming through. That's why they get this. So a slave revolt in Astapor, check.
Yep.
Dragons in Karth, check.
Yep. Old news, but the same person.
Grey Plague in Yiti. Now, this is news to me, but maybe you know more than I do.
Yeah, we know nothing else. I mean, Yiti is in the far east of Essos. We've got no POVs anywhere near there. Dany was the closest when she was in Karth. So maybe that will lead to something down the road, but as of now, it's just background news.
If Euron Greyjoy comes down with the Grey Plague, we'll know he's been that far, at least.
Right. It's funny you mentioned Euron Greyjoy, because another bit of news is that there's a new Corsair king in the Basilisk Isles, and that they've recently raided Tall Trees Town in the Summer Isles. Now, let's take a few steps back here. Krasnizmo Naklaus, do you remember him? He was...
I thought you sneezed, sorry.
He was the man selling Dany the Unsullied.
Oh, right, yep.
Who ends up dying
yes.
In the process.
Yes.
Well, he mentioned...
He shouldn't have said mean things about her.
Right, yeah. He mentioned that a corsair inquired about buying the Unsullied before Dany.
Oh.
So that's interesting, right?
Yeah, that is interesting.
So, possibly, could this corsair king be Euron? Because he's also... if it was Euron that was this corsair king in the Basilisk Isles, on his way back from the Basilisk Isles to the Iron Islands, he might have stopped in at the Summer Isles and raided Tall Trees Town. We know that Silence, his ship, is made up of men that might fit that description based on what Victarion was describing to us.
That is cast iron. I'm with you. Good work. And in Cahor, followers of the Red Priests have rioted and tried to burn down the Black Goat. More flexing from R'hllor.
Right, yes.
Trying to establish himself across both continents.
Yeah. So the primary god of worship in Cahor is the Black Goat. So that's kind of why this is important.
Right.
But by the way, that Corsair King possibly being Euron was not solely me. I've heard that and read that theory previously. So I can't take full credit for that.
No, it makes perfect sense now you've said it. The most relevant piece of news we did share, which is that the Golden Company has broken its contract with Myr, and by implication because of bribery from Lys, because the Myrish were hiring them to help them defeat Lys, and Lys obviously got wind of it and outbid them. She has good reason to believe that her brother Quentyn rides with the Golden Company.
Yeah, she believes that it was Quentyn that caused the Golden Company to break its contract with Myr, not Lys. She thinks that's his plan is to steal Dorne from her by hiring the Golden Company to help him take her birthright.
But how would that play into the Myr-Lys conflict, though?
Only that that the Golden Company is known for its word. It doesn't. It's not like most sellswords that will break its contract at the drop of a hat. They're known for their reputation as being a stand-up
steadfast
operation. Yes, when it comes to sellswords. So them breaking their lease with Myr is kind of a big deal. She believes that Quentyn is in the process of trying to take her birthright, which is as her father's heir. She thinks Myr and the Gold Company going separate ways is related to this.
Maybe.
Now,
one thing, just let me interject here my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Quentyn doesn't have the backing to hire the Golden Company. He's not particularly wealthy. He's the second son of Prince Doran, second child of Prince Doran. But if he could get Myr to pay them a bunch of money to attack Lys, and Lys to pay them a even larger sum to not attack Lys, and he is negotiating this, he now maybe controls the coffers to say, all right, boys, we've got some time on our hands and I've got lots of money.
Well, that could be too. Yes, maybe. Remember, she did find that letter from her father to Quentyn saying, you will sit in my place someday. Right. And that's why she thinks her father is behind it. So he would have the Martell gold, I guess, if the letter is accurate and if she read it properly.
But if Doran wants to give the throne to Quentyn, why send him off to hire the Golden Company?
Right.
Just give it to
him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so it's been hard to tell whether this idea that she has about Quentyn and the Golden Company is real, is paranoia, or was just used as a means to make Arys feel bad for her and sway him to her side.
Yeah.
Because there's no real evidence
that
Quentyn is behind any of this.
Right.
So,
good point.
Now it is a bit suspect that there is a boy in Planky Town that matches Quentyn's description, who is with a friend who matches Cletus Ironwood's description, who happens to be Quentyn's friend and foster brother, and they're with a maester who appears to be an expert in translation, all seeking passage across the narrow sea. So that's a little bit of make you go, what's going on there? Could she be right about this plot?
Yeah.
And she's hoping that Quentyn is doing it alone, but there are scrolls. He's in possession of scrolls from their father with their father's seal on it. I thought, that's not exactly a smoking gun. The scrolls could be about it. It could be a happy birthday scroll. He is his son. He's allowed to send him
to letters. The Iron Bank of Bravos. This kid's good for it.
Could say that as well. Yes.
So Arys arrives with news that Tywin is dead, and it's a real plot thickener here because it goads Arianne for two reasons. First, the Lannisters, of course, are weakened by the loss, so the idea to strike now at the Lannisters sort of gains momentum. But secondly, Cersei is assuming the throne until Tommen comes of age, and that accidentally gives a little bit of a boost to the primogeniture conversation in favor of Arianne, because a woman is sitting the Iron Throne right this second. Why shouldn't I inherit Dorne?
Right, yeah. She sees it, she being Arianne, sees it as a win-win situation for, her motives.
But also a confuser for Myrcella. If they're going to crown Myrcella, it's going to cause strife, of course. But accidentally, Cersei is backing the play. She doesn't even know she's doing it.
Yeah, and so Darkstar thinks that crowning Myrcella won't engage the Lannisters in war. He thinks the way to engage the Lannisters in war is to kill Myrcella.
Yes, he does.
Now, I think that he is right that crowning Myrcella won't engage the Lannisters in war if Tywin was in control. Because Tywin is not known to just lash out impulsively without thinking through the next steps. He would think, this is a ploy. We're not going to fall into this trap. Cersei, on the other hand, she's a little more impulsive.
You know what's funny? When you started that monologue, and I realized the question you were going to sort of pose, I thought to myself, I know what I'm going to say, and I was going to say exactly what you said. That Tywin would totally not fall for that. He'd be like, I don't care. I don't get that you've crowned her. I don't get that you've killed her. I'm not coming down there for this. But yes, Cersei is much more easy to manipulate with that kind of shenanigans. So
right. So great minds are thinking alike here.
For sure. For sure. Because I mean, if they crown Myrcella, the easiest thing to do is ignore it.
Right.
Do nothing.
Don't give it oxygen.
Exactly.
Let them crown her. Let them parade her around. What are they going to do about that?
And eventually they're going to have to face Prince Doran. Prince Doran's going to be like, I'm still not happy with what you've done,
Yes. Right. Yeah.
But anyway, this leads me to the sort of question I wanted to ask you, which is, what do you think is Arianne's primary motive here? I have said before on this podcast, and I'll say it again, people's primary motives are not people's only motives. But is it revenge or is it power that is driving her most here?
I think it's power, ultimately.
Yeah, I do too.
But Darkstar tries to summarize her motives back to her, and he says, you want to free the sand snakes, you want vengeance for Oberyn and Elia, and you want a taste of lion's blood. And she thinks to herself, yeah, I want all those things. But I also want my birthright, which is her father's seat, Sunspear, and Dorne.
Right.
And yes, as you say, I think it's all those things.
Yeah.
So
had he said you want your birthright, your father's throne, and Dorne, she might have added, and I want a taste of lion's blood and yada yada yada. But she would have said it with less conviction. The thing she's convinced about is that she wants that power. Yeah, I'm with you. I think I like her.
Yeah,
I like her, but
sure. Yeah,
she's in it for herself.
If she had never read that letter that from her father to her brother that said, "You will sit in my place someday," would she be so gung ho pull this off. Now, she loves the sand snakes. Tyene is her closest person
Right,
in the world. So she would want them freed. She obviously loves her uncle and her aunt. She would want vengeance for them. But would she be willing to go through all this if it wasn't also that she's hoping to secure her birthright?
As it turns out, she's probably condemned the sand snakes to longer in jail because what Dorne wants is everyone to calm down. And the more people stir things up, the longer he's going to keep those sand snakes under lock and key. They've done nothing wrong, and he loves them too, you know?
Right, yeah.
But he ain't letting them out while this kind of thing is fermenting.
Yeah, and he's also protecting them by keeping them locked up.
True
because,
enough.
As he thought with the little ones, who are way too small to kick off a rebellion, I don't want someone using them against me to start a rebellion, take them and threaten them or something like that. But so Myrcella and Arys arrive, and they all start calling her Your Grace right off the bat, and she is immediately confused by this, and she asks Sir Arys, what's happening here? Why are they calling me Your Grace? Did something happen to Tommen? And Arianne, she's fond of Arianne, so she's glad to see Arianne because she doesn't know who all these strangers are. She says, no, Tommen's fine physically. He's just fallen in with bad people who have claimed your throne for him. And she was like, oh, it's not my throne. And then, Arianne explains, you're the older child, therefore it is your throne. So clearly she had never considered the idea of being queen. She wasn't threatened in any way about this.
Right. Well, I mean, she's just a child,
Right.
She's a child who was third in line to the throne when her father was alive, or even more distant than that, honestly.
Yes, right.
So it never crossed her mind, but she'll think about it now, that's for sure.
Yeah, I wondered, as this plays out, will she think, you know what? They've got a good point here.
To fall in love with Trystane, to marry him and to make him, to be king and queen of the Seven Kingdoms, that's a dream that's going to appeal to just about anyone,
Yes, it will. We've talked about that before, them being a possible power couple.
Right, exactly.
In Westeros.
Yeah.
But one other thing that this conversation here made me think about was, Arys said that Tyrion had chosen Arys and told Myrcella that Arys is here to protect you and to trust any command given to her by Arys. And that's high trust.
That is high
from
trust.
Tyrion in Arys. Unfortunately, he's kind of betraying that trust with this excursion here because he's leading her astray a bit.
Well, again, it is possible. He's not thinking of Myrcella. He's not even really thinking of himself. He's just thinking of Arianne. But
right.
There is a sort of mental gymnastics you can do to come round to the fact that this is the right thing to do for Myrcella. If you were to sit down and convince someone that primogeniture, regardless of gender, was the right thing to do, then Arys would sit there and go, so she's the queen. Exactly, she's the queen.
Yes.
She should be crowned, and Tommen is an usurper who should be gotten rid of. As a member of the Kingsguard, you should back this. I don't think he's giving it that much thought. He's just doing what Arianne tells him because he's in love with her.
Well, and
he's not.
Basically,
I just don't think it's betrayal, out and out betrayal. It's not like he's sending her to her death or anything like that. He's justifying his actions in the sense of trying to protect her.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and that is basically how Arianne pitched it to him. Is she's the older, and she's more fit to be queen. She's the better candidate, and she's the legitimate candidate.
Yeah.
And he ultimately bought that.
Quick side note here. They talk about Myrcella and Trystane playing Sivas, the chess-like game. We got a little bit more information on how to play it. You get to arrange your starting pieces a certain way, so it's not like chess in that respect. Dragons can swoop between mountains to eat elephants. I'm beginning to piece this together. I can see the beginnings of a strategy here. Don't know all the rules yet, but we'll figure it out. And as a footnote, just an ability to think strategically and tactically are clearly necessary to being good at Sivas and, honestly, the Game of Thrones. Myrcella is crushing Trystane at this. She sees the board. She knows what to do. No matter what he does, she beats him. Myrcella to be the best of the Lannisters at the whole Game of Thrones thing?
Yeah. Might Savas be the Queenmaker? Maybe that's how they should decide. A best of 5 Savas tournament to see which sibling or whoever the contenders are for the crown.
That is an interesting thought, because I put a lot of stock in how good people are at chess. You know, I mean, people who are good at chess are very good at thinking, and so you might trust them to be your leaders. But the best chess player I know is a lunatic. So, not
Bobby
sure.
Fischer also.
Bobby Fischer was very troubled indeed. Yeah. So, yeah, tricky. I don't want to commit to that plan, but worth considering.
Well, we'll do a psychological evaluation first, and then
right. Yes, you pass that, then you're into the chess tournament.
Yeah.
But of course, I think Bobby Fischer always argued that it was the chess that broke him. So you have to do it after the tournament,
sure.
You know.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. She is as smart as advertised by Arys in his chapter a few chapters ago. And she realized that Septa Eglantine wasn't dyeing Myrcella's hair just for a game. Well, they were aimlessly sailing about the narrow sea on their never-ending quest to get to Sunspear, and even pieced together the reason why in the event that Stannis captured their ship.
Right.
So, no one told her any of this. They just said it was a fun game. We're going to switch people. You're going to be your cousin, and she's going to be you.
That whole switching the princess with the maid is a sort of trope that's used many, many times. I think it's quite dangerous, personally, because you can't obviously protect the maid with bodyguards and things.
Right.
That would rather give the game away. So she is rather vulnerable to sort of like some random act of nastiness by...
Yeah. Why is there all those guards around the maid?
Yeah.
Nobody's around the princess.
Exactly. Or you give the game away. So
Yes.
you told us some spoiler talk when we had the Captain of the Guard chapter, which was way back at the start of Feast for Crows.
Yeah.
But I don't remember what the spoiler talk was, but obviously I do because it happened in this chapter. But
it's just
let me offer a guess. So the Captain of the Guard is Areo Hotah, and Areo Hotah said that he thought one day he would have to fight Arys Oakheart.
Yes, exactly. He thought he had a kind of a vision that someday he and Areo Hotah had a vision that someday he and Sir Arys would clash weapons and that Arys would die, and he sure did.
Yeah, in my vision of fighting Arys Oakheart, I would want him to be sort of like a pincushion of crossbow quarrels before he arrived as well.
Certainly doesn't hurt.
No,
swing
you.
Things in your favor.
Definitely hurts him.
Yeah. The other thing is that Tyne's plan is the same as Arianne's. When Tyne pitches her plan to Dorne in Sunspear, it's basically this exact same plan that Arianne is enacting here. And we know, she mentions it in this chapter, that there's no one in the world closer to her than Tyne. So it certainly sounds like the two of them got together and discussed what the best plan of action is.
Yeah.
Or they think so much alike that they came up with it separately.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We do get Arianne's perspective on her feelings about Arys, and she's fond of him for sure. She's not in love with him the way he is with her, and she also mentions that he and Wits are distant cousins.
Yes, they are strangers.
Strangers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she doesn't really respect him the way you would like to.
Yeah.
And also, now that he's fully engaged in this plan, she brushes off 2 physical advances from him. Now, in her defense, I agree. Not the right time or the right place.
Right.
But, she was all for physical advances before he was fully engaged in this plan.
Right. Yes. So the plan as it is to take the green blood to Vaith, then cross land to Hellholt, the seat of Lord Ulla, and there crown Myrcella and raise her banners. And actually, what's funny about that is, it's as we've talked, I've sort of like changed my perspective a little bit on this second part of the plan. Because for me, the crowning Myrcella is the main body of the plan. The raising the banners is Arianne's power play, which doesn't really belong. But in actual fact, these two have to go together, because if she just crowned Myrcella and then, I don't know, brought her back, everyone would just ignore it. Dorne would ignore it. The rest of the Seven Kingdoms would ignore it. Nothing would happen. Arianne has to raise her banners to win Dorne, to legitimize the crowning that she's about to do.
Right. Because then she needs someone of higher power than her father to say, Arianne, I am making you the Princess of Dorne. Because Dorne could say, I am making your younger brother my heir.
Right.
You know, so
true.
she needs to one up Dorne.
Yeah.
So you kind of went through the path there of, you know, this journey that they're about to go on. They were still a really long way from their destination. Currently, when they got captured here, they're still in easternish, the western part of eastern Dorne. Then they had to float all the way up to the end of the Greenblood, then float all the way to the end of the Vaith, which only gets them to central Dorne. Then they had to travel a long distance on land to get to western Dorne, where Hellholt is. So they were still in the infancy of they're like day one of quite a long journey here.
So now I've got a suspect for who told, because Areo Hotah says someone always tells. So the most lazy one of those companions strikes me as Dre Holt. He's the one who would go, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not doing.
Do you know how hot that stretch is?
Exactly. You know what?
From the end of the Vaith to Hellholt.
If I were him, I would tell Areo Hotah, if I tell you this, where are you going to intercept the plan? He said, probably just on the door of Hellholt. Forget it. I'm not telling you. Before the Greenblood or nothing.
So real quick, the question is, why Hellholt? Well, like you said, it's the seat of House Uller. And Ilaria Sand, Oberyn's paramour, is the bastard daughter of Lord Uller. So that's where the connection is there.
Right. I'll ask.
Let's get into a weird development. Go ahead.
Arys's charge.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the weirdest of developments in this whole chapter.
Yeah, because basically when Hotah appears, he's then surrounded. He's not alone. A bunch of soldiers, a dozen soldiers with crossbows cocked, appear, pointing them at these people. And Hotah I think Hotah announces loudly that if they yield, they'll all be taken back. If they fail to yield, only Myrcella and Arianne will survive.
Yeah, the two people he cares about in this group.
Right, only they will survive. So the thing is, nobody else in this group is ready to fight. I mean,
they literally start throwing down weapons.
Exactly. But Arys takes one look at Arianne, and she sort of looks at him, and she then falls into this little sort of like, it would kind of be a fairy tale if he would fight for me, when what she should have been saying was, don't be stupid.
Yes. What are you doing? Put your sword down. She literally says to him, Arys, protect Myrcella.
Right.
Which is the exact opposite of what he does.
Right, exactly. I mean, protect Myrcella and put your sword down. And cover Myrcella with your body. That's what he should do.
And yeah, as you say that, he literally does the opposite. He moves in between Arianne and the crossbows, not Myrcella and the crossbows, like he is sworn to do. And then, absolutely unprovoked, rides into just a buzzsaw, a hornet's nest of crossbowmen, where he has no chance of survival, and there was just no need.
Yeah.
There was no need for it.
The one justification I tried to think through was, did he think that his life was forfeit for what he did? And I concluded, no, absolutely not. Because he, as we've said, he can justify what he's doing as doing the best for Myrcella.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe not what you think we should do, Areo. Maybe not what you think we should do, Prince Doran. But it's what I thought was best for her. So I went ahead and did it.
Yeah, you could definitely make that argument.
It might be treasonous to Dorne, but my loyalty is not to Dorne. My loyalty is to the Myrcella.
Yeah. Well, technically, I guess his loyalty is to Tommen. And Tommen, well, that was his argument first. That was his argument to Arianne. My loyalty is to Tommen. And she says, your loyalty is to the queen, and the queen is Myrcella.
Right.
So yes, you could definitely make that leap. And we could also have much discussion, and we probably will,
knowing
on
us,
who betrayed Arianne and her plan here. But one possible explanation, and again, this isn't entirely my own theory. I've seen this theory written and discussed previously, is one possible explanation for his rash behavior is suicide by Hotah. So he's riddled by guilt for breaking his vows with Arianne, breaking his celibacy vows. Yep. The deception of swapping out Myrcella for her handmaid, the plot to steal and then crown Myrcella. He's riddled by guilt by all of that. So secretly leaves clues for Dorne, knowing that they will get caught, and then decides to end his life over his shame and dishonor so he could die an honorable death with sword in hand versus shamefully as a traitor where he might be hung or something of that nature.
That's good. That's at least a justification. But
it is.
It was a strange decision. It really was.
Without that piece that I just laid out there, it makes no sense.
But the kicker of it is that it was still in Arianne's hands. Because Arianne actually cries out no as he charges, but she has an opportunity to say no before he charges, and she chooses not to and lets him do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Her thought was that her voice failed her, but it also failed him because she had enough control. She might, unless my theory that I just laid out there, which is not my theory, but unless that is true, and he planned this whole thing.
Well, let's test that by shouting no and see what he does. At least it's not your fault then, Arianne. At least he chose to do it anyway.
Right.
Do you have a bet for who's the traitor? You see, I really like Dre Dalt now. I think that's working well for me. But there is one other. It could be any of them. Who knows?
Right. Well, so based on the rest's feeling toward Darkstar, you would think he is the top suspect. Garin mentions mistrusting Darkstar, but that could possibly be the redirecting of suspicion. If you were the one that had told, you might start saying, I don't trust that guy over there.
Very true. Very true.
So, yes. But here's a possible reason why it might not be Darkstar. And it's just just like kind of a feeling that I had. So Myrcella's down on her knees with her hands over her face and blood pouring out. We don't know. It could be someone else's blood. And if it was her own blood, we don't know who did it.
Right.
But if it were to have been Darkstar, who was the one that suggested we need to kill Myrcella to get this war, he sees that this current plan is failing. And so he takes this opportunity. Right. Well, if this plan's going to fail, I'm going to go with the plan I thought would work in the first place. If he had planned to betray them all by outing this plan, why would he then try and kill her at that point? Why not just let the plan go on and off her at some point, rather than putting himself and everyone in danger here?
Well, I take your point, but you see, I could go the opposite conclusion. He doesn't think he can. If he quietly murdered Myrcella on this journey, that probably wouldn't trigger the war because it would be some evil person murdered her, not an act of war against the Lannisters. But if he triggers a fight in which he gets an opportunity to kill her, you're right. You're right. It seems strange.
I had the same thought you did. I was going back and forth on this, and I was trying to think, would he do it if his plan was to kill Myrcella?
Yeah. And there's clearly Myrcella seems to be injured, and there is a shout of don't let him get away. So not Arianne, not Silver. Somebody's trying to get away, and it feels like the person you'd say don't let him get away to is the one whose sword is dripping with Myrcella's blood.
Yeah, you're right. And Dre and Garin are both mentioned as Garin put his hands in the air.
Right.
As I'm putting my hands in the air. And Dre dropped his sword.
Right. So, yes.
So if it was going to be someone, it seems like it was...
But again, that doesn't go to his
Darkstar.
being treasonous to this plot. He may have just been taking the opportunity. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it, like I said, I think it means he probably wasn't the one who told.
Right.
Because it just doesn't, it seems like a spur of the moment thing and not something he had planned out.
So assuming that Myrcella is not mortally wounded, I mean, she's certainly hurt, but let's fingers crossed that she's not mortally wounded. How is she going to feel? Obviously, she's lost her bodyguard, but if Hotah can talk to her on the journey back and explain what's going on, maybe she'll see that he rescued her from something that Arys Oakheart should have protected her from.
Yep.
And perhaps she'll be relieved, and she gets to be reunited with Prince Trystane, and now she's perhaps more secure from, more plots like this because they're going to keep a tighter watch on her. And I mean, again, I would show her the map and show her where they were taking her. And she'd be like,
yes,
thanks. Thank goodness you're here.
Yes.
I give up all rights to the crown. Just don't take me that way.
Everything that you laid out makes possible. It's a possibility especially the Trystane part.
Yeah.
Because she is a young girl who's in love.
Yeah.
And, I think she's malleable enough, is intelligent enough as well to realize.
The flip side, of course, is that she just got horribly wounded in some way in a fight caused by Hotah, and she may think that Arianne and co were the only people protecting her. We don't know. Right. We don't know how confused that whole situation was. But if I were Hotah, I'd be working on the PR with her the whole way home.
Yeah, right. Although it doesn't seem like there's a lot of PR work that goes on in Westeros.
No. And Dorne in particular. Prince Doran is always doing things as quietly as a human can do things,
Right. Everything's on the down low.
Exactly.
Now, if Myrcella truly is injured, and it's beyond just some surface injury, how is the crown going to react? Are the Martells going to be forced to tell the tale of what happened? Are they going to tell a tale about... Now, Myrcella, unless her voice box was cut out, would be able to speak for herself about what happened.
Yeah.
So, that's something we'll have to figure out, I guess.
And the last point I want to make, actually, is that has her scheming actually had the opposite effect? Might Doran now feel that she is too impetuous to rule and actually start genuinely thinking about Quentyn to lead instead? We don't know for a fact that letter ever existed, that Arianne said she saw, but maybe Doran would write that letter now, given Arianne's behavior.
Yes. Yeah. She's become untrustworthy to him. Yeah, it's possible.
Okay, now a brief interlude for spoilers. Join us at the higher tiers of the sustainer levels and you can get this. All right. Very good spoilers. Thank you. Do you have some background for us?
I do. Well, Garin mentions being named after the Garin the Great of Roynish lore. As Sir Gerald says, maybe if he had led 250,000 to their death, they'd call him Gerald the Great. So let's look at some details of Garin and what made him so great. So Garin was a Rhoynar prince of the city Troyane. During what's known as the Second Spice War between the Rhoynar and the Valyrian Freehold, Garin gathered Rhoynish forces of 250,000 at Troyane and declared that as long as they stayed near the Rhoyne, they'd be protected from the dragons of Valyria by the water wizards. We'll get into water wizards another day. He earned the moniker the Great after victories against the Freehold at Solhoris, Valisar, and Volon Theris. I got all those right on about the fourth try. His winning streak ran out as his host threatened Volantis. Garin was captured by a joint Volantis-Valyria force and hung in a cage. He was then carried in his cage to his home city of Croyane so that he could witness the city's destruction and his people's enslavement. Garin called on the Mother Rhoyne to wipe out his captors, and, conveniently, that night the river overflowed its banks out of season and drowned the invaders. And that's not all. A thick fog rolled through Croyane. Not so coincidentally, it's said that the men of Valyria and Volantis began dying of grayscale. To this day, it's said that the fog infests the ruined city of Croyane, as the breath of the fallen conqueror is rising from the waters. Some say that Garin's curse is what brought about the doom of Valyria. And as the story goes, upon seeing the fate of Garin and his army, Nymeria packed the remainder of the Rhoynar, mostly women, children, and old men, into ships and fled Essos. And you'll never guess how many ships there were.
Was it 10,000?
It was 10,000.
I did guess.
You did guess it.
All right. Well, comparison with the television show, it's just not there. The show deviated quite wildly in the whole Dornish stories. There was just none of this happened. I think.
Yeah.
Although now I think about it, did Hotah fight someone? Maybe that fight happened. Yeah, screw it.
Well, you said there was no Arys Oakheart, I believe.
You're right. So she just came down here undefended? God, it's so stupid.
Well, I think you were saying she came down with someone who turned around and went back.
That's right. They did. God, it's so stupid.
I can't remember which character
You're
they
absolutely
said
right.
did it.
You're absolutely right. Well, anyway, everything I said up until the point I started to go off script was correct. So I'll just leave it at that. Pedantry Corner. One that I noticed was that Arianne is remembering when Oberyn taught Tyene, and air quotes time, the safest way to milk a viper for its venom. And it just seems pretty unlikely to me that there is more than one, or indeed even one, safe way to milk a viper for its venom.
Is the unsafe way to get bitten?
I assume
by the
so.
viper?
Suck it out and spit it into a bottle, yeah.
Right.
And we shouldn't call character decisions pedantry because they're character decisions, but Arys did not need to die here. And your explanation maybe bails him out, because otherwise I was going to call this pedantry.
Yeah, it really makes no sense without the possible explanation that I painted earlier. Yeah. It's just like, what are you doing? Yeah. Why are you doing that? Stop doing that. You're going to get yourself killed. There's no reason.
And your poor horse, he didn't do anything.
Right.
He's broken no vows.
And we had an almost pedantry in this chapter. I had something I thought was pedantry, and I ran it by our astute, observant, intelligent, buy me a coffee, sustainer tier, Discord channel. And so here's what I thought was going to be pedantry. Dorne explains why Quentyn fosters with the Ironwoods. He's explaining it to his wife, why he had to do it. And he said it was a blood debt. Quentyn was the only coin Lord Ormont would accept. And I thought, wait, Oberyn was found in bed with Lord Edgar Ironwood's paramour. They dueled, few cuts to both before it ended, and then Edgar's wounds festered. He died, and it was rumored that Oberyn had used a poisoned sword. But then Lord Anders Ironwood is the man that Quentyn fostered under. So I thought, who is this Ormond guy? Where did he come from? Is this another mistaken word, like last week with Harrenhal instead of Highgarden? Yeah. So I asked our fine friends on the Discord channel, and who is this Ormond? And it was Derek who pointed out that there is a generation between Edgar and Anders. It goes Edgar, grandfather, Ormond, father, Anders, the son. So Ormond was the son of the man who was killed.
I see. Wow.
Yeah, that's the only mention of him in the whole story.
Good find, so Derek. Yeah.
Yes, Derek came to the rescue before I made a total fool of myself.
Well, honestly,
for the 10th time this episode.
Only in front of Derek, I feel. Nobody else would have noticed.
Right.
News and notes.
Well, so George Martin has a really fantastic dissertation on dragons on his blog, which is called Not a Blog. It's way too long for me to sum up here, but basically he compares different types of dragon lore throughout cultures, as well as dragons from fantasy works. Then he dives into the characteristics of his Valyrian dragons in A Song of Ice and Fire. It is definitely worth checking out. His website is georgerrmartin.com. /notablog if you want to get to his blog. And it's worth reading. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'll check it out. I'm going away for a week in early August, and actually technically late July, but at one of the early August episodes we'll have a guest host. We're excited about that.
Yes, you'll never guess who it is.
Possible. Is it Jenny of Oldstones?
How would you have ever guessed that? You are on fire today with guessing things.
Yeah, the mind is a trap. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for doing that, Jenny. I appreciate it. It will make my vacation much easier. And I'll also come back to a new high standard that I have to live up to.
You know, we should do an episode with the three of us one day.
Oh, we should. That's exciting. Although the whole editing thing will be a challenge.
Oh, no. You've forgotten again. That was the joke we made last time. As you mentioned that to Jenny, and Jenny said, Simon, we did do that.
Oh, yes, I had forgotten. So I forgot we had this conversation, and then I forgot we did a 3-person... One of these days I'll go back and listen to that one to see if I actually remember any of it. I'd been so good today. I'd remembered almost everything.
You did. You used it all up.
I did.
You know.
Couldn't last. We really did an episode, all three of us, because that just did not stick.
We did. It was good. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a well-done episode.
That'd be a riot to do. Listen, next time we do it, invite me. Yeah.
Okay, I will. I'll be sure to do that.
Because I clearly got cut out last time.
I'll be sure to record it too in case you want to hear it. Well, we also have a really nice review from Finn Woods from Apple Podcast Great Britain. I feel like you should read this since you've got the accent.
I'm not sure they wrote it with an accent, but I will. I never mind reading the nice things. Growing strong. Fantastic podcast, a great way to refresh myself on the books and hear people who love the words of A Song of Ice and Fire discuss it with glee, and we do. The appreciation of the world is infectious and it's a really entertaining listen. Cheers, guys!
Well done. I like the accent. What type of accent was that?
That's just sort of like typical sort of British received pronunciation, home counties, BBC, you know.
Okay, gotcha.
Slightly posher than I am, let's put it that way.
Right. That's not hard to do.
Thank you, Finn. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ouch. All right, let's conclude this one. So Arianne's plans go down in flames, and she looks just as impetuous as the Sand Snakes. And Quentyn maybe looks a better bet if Arianne is right about Doran's plans. She's made a tactical error here.
You make a lot of sense with that idea. Hmm. And unfortunately, the Kingsguard is down another honorable man. They're already scraping the barrel at some level with Osmond Kettleblack and Meryn Trant and Boris Blunt.
You got to say, Arys's honor is somewhat besmirched, but at least he tried to have some. The Kettleblacks doesn't even feel like they're even trying, you know.
Yeah, he was doing what he thought was the best thing for his queen or his princess at the moment.
Yeah,
future queen.
That it happened to lead to his being in bed with Arianne was neither here nor there in his thinking, I'm sure.
Right. Yes, it was but a side note to the actual reasoning. But Jaime did say that he boasted to himself. He didn't say it to his uncle, but that if left to his own devices, he would create a legendary brotherhood if he could select his own brothers, but people keep doing it for him.
Yeah.
So now he'll get a chance to replace Sir Arys. So I expect it to be someone of the highest caliber.
But to be fair, like you said, he wasn't one of the ones he would choose to get rid of necessarily. There were definitely worse than Arys. If you were trying to get rid of the worst to replace with the best, he wouldn't be where you'd start.
No, not at all.
So Myrcella seems to be injured, and is she a prisoner? Or is she freed from captivity by this?
Good questions. Yeah, good questions. And if the Lannisters get word, will there be repercussions for the Martells?
Yeah. Well, there'll be something. They won't just take it in their stride, that's for sure.
No, especially with who's calling the shots right now.
Mm-hmm. And Prince Doran, I mean, he's a Savas player himself, even if he doesn't know how to play it. But he plays it very carefully. He doesn't overextend his forces, but he also doesn't miss much.
No, and he's playing he probably would play the Game of Thrones very well as well.
Yes.
He'd be one of those subtle players you don't even know is playing the game
Yes.
until all of a sudden
Yeah.
he wins the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did someone tell? If so, who? Might nobody have told? And Hotah just said that.
Yeah.
Because, possibly Dorne was watching closely and figured out what Arianne was up to because she's his daughter.
That's a good point. And there's no better way to sort of like infest a group with distrust than mentioning the fact that they were betrayed by someone. Because how can you ever trust that whole group again if you believe that?
Right. We'll break up the group.
Mm-hmm. And next up, we're headed to Braavos to visit young Arya Stark. Will be exciting to hear from her.
That's right. Or maybe it'll be Sansa. I don't know. We keep getting...
Everyone's
confusing Arya and Sansa these days. So
one and the same. There's 3 ways that you can help us. You can leave us a positive review, as Finn Woods did. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. There you can join us at any of the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest. The upper tiers get you the spoiler section. Or you can just make a donation directly to our cause at ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, I suggest you go check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, YouTube, and hey, now you can send us fan mail via text. We just can't respond.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.